Hello friends, welcome to the channel for a new video. Today we're gonna talk all about battle report. So yesterday we did a video about stats, so I kind of explained how all the games is coming up with these numbers basically and what you should focus on. So following that, now that we have an understanding of how you increase your stats and where they're coming from, today we can talk about the battle report. So that's kind of the next step I wanted to take here. Battle reports can be very confusing for a lot of people when it might not be the most in-depth guide on the internet you might find on it, but I really want to cover the basic to kind of explain all you need to look and care about in the battle report, and how to explain most of the situation you find yourself. Because I've seen so many players confused and asking and not understanding what's going on. So let's go through the video. So we'll basically review the battle report step by step, all you can see in the battle report, from top to bottom and the other pages, and kind of sharing some important information to understand and what you can do to either improve your rallies or understand, what happened basically, so you can adapt the strategy to your opponent, whether it's a solo march or a rally leader. So as you can see, if you start, you have the time, the date, you have the location. So that was Tyrant, so I cannot go there. Then you have the location of the players, offense on the left with the little weapons, and you have the defense with the little shield, so who is offense, who is defense, right? You can see the amount of troop of each rally, so the more troop, the more likelihood of being successful you are, of course, because they will do more damage, they'll take more damage and stuff. Losses are dead troops, so if you click on it, you can basically see, right? The game tells you injured are the troops that goes into your infirmary, so far it's straightforward, and you can see, like, even if you get crushed, you get roughly a third of your troops going to infirmary or that are dying, based on the amount in the rallies. It's rarely you go over that, so it's roughly a third of your troops that will either get injured or die if your infirmary is full. Troops are dying here if you attack a city, or if your infirmary is full. Some go to enlistment and some are basically dead, right? But attacking city is the main reason for lost troops, and some facilities level 4 as well, like 10% of dead troops, something like that. Something to note right away is lightly injured, and many people do not know that, but lightly injured troops will recover when they are returned to the city. Until they are returned, the lightly injured troops will stay in the same squad and not be able to participate in battle. So out of the 1,742,000 blah blah blah, he has 7,500 troops that are stopped fighting. And the way they refresh these troops is by sending a new march to the building they're inside. He will put new troops in the building, and he will return the lightly injured one to the city. You don't have to do anything with lightly injured. You don't have to heal them or anything. But if you are taking 2-3 rallies in Sunfire Castle, for example, without you sending a single march to swap these lightly injured troops, then your will likely start to fail because these troops are not fighting anymore. So that's why you want to reinforce often when you have injured troops in a garrison or some in a building. It's to refresh them because they stop fighting, and you don't have to remove your march from the building and send a new one. You just have to send a new march, and the game gonna swap the troop automatically, but it's gonna swap the troop for you. So if there are 10 people in the building, and you all have injured troops, if you send a march, it will replace your own troops. It's not gonna replace the injured troops of your rally leader or someone else. So that's something to know. Here is who is sharing the stats. So the stats that you can see below and the heroes with the rally or the garrison, right? So these were garrison, we were the rally. So you see, I'm the rally leader. That's my stats. It was Sultan the rally leader, the garrison leader, but the stats came from Game Master. It's probably because in that case, Sultan ran out of pets, and Game Master had pets, right? And you can see a bonus, defender bonus source, chief with the highest total battle power tech, so hero gear, hero blah blah blah, all of that, plus the pets in the rally. So even if Sultan is maxed out, then somehow Game Master was sharing the stats here. So you know, it could be, in that case, there are two maxed out players, like they have insane stats, but you could have a very weak player here, and you could have your best player of your alliance here, and he will be the one sharing the stats. The only thing that this dude is not sharing that the capacity, right, of the rally. So, except pets. Actually, no. Pet deployment capacity do not impact for the person here. So you want the rally leader here to have the biggest capacity, and you want here to have the player with the biggest stats. And often it's the same player that is the rally leader or the garrison leader, but sometimes it's not. And I'll talk about that a bit later. But it's often a question of pets, basically. It says here that the attacker bonus, chief who initiate the attack or call the rally. I've seen another player sharing stats on offensive rally nowadays, so I'm not sure when they changed that, but I'm pretty sure we did it with offense as well. I don't think I have replaced to... Don't think I saved report because I was not planning to make the video by then, but I have a pretty strong feeling that we did that in the past for offense as well. See? So that was defense. That was defense. Maybe we did it for defense. Maybe I'm actually confused. We did it for defense for sure. But I think we did for offense as well in Sunfire Castle. I'm just not sure I have a report to share it. But that's, you know, not that one. We want not the one with APEC, the one with Sultan. Okay, fair enough. So then, you know, you have the sources, so you can understand why it's a weak player and they have amazing stats because someone else is sharing stats. Then you can quickly compare the gear, chief gear comparison with the charms, you know, and it's a no match here. He has, you know, charms level 14, 15. I have charms level 6 and 5. Like, you know, it's easy to compare. That will give you an overview of someone's power, you know, the widget, the hero they are using, because that will explain a bit the percentages, right? Like we saw yesterday, not all the percentages are coming from here. You have tech, you have pets, you have alliance, you have facilities, you have island, you have research. I mean, you have many sources, but that's giving you a quick overview of, you know, of who you are against. Here, what's important with the troop power comparison is you can see the amount of, you know, infantry, lancers, and marksmen people had. So quickly, the blue one, remember. That's actually weird. It looks like the opposite of us. But let's look at it that way, right? So somehow here we are the red and the blue. And here we are the blue and they are the red. So don't ask me why. It might be very, you know, it might be just the way it is every time. Like blue are on the left and, you know, whatever. Doesn't really matter. But here you have the amount of troops, which is not really important actually. You usually don't really care. You care about the ratio. So you can see we were using 50, 20, 30, which was not exactly executed properly by people joining, but that's okay. And they were using something weird. They were using 35, 64, 1. So it's probably because, you know, they were holding the middle in Citadel and, you know, they get the infantry injured the most, and they were probably using 60-40, so no marksmen, and somehow someone sent like marksmen by mistakes, and, you know, their infantry are getting destroyed because in First Dragon Tyrant there are so many rallies and stuff. So, you know, usually people will have a proper troop ratio. So I'll talk about troop ratio a bit. It's very important, but by default it's showing you the amount, and you will likely want to swap on it to see, you know, what was happening. Basically, in most of the case, I'll make it very simple. It's not that simple in reality. You know, there are more to say to it, but to understand, it's like infantry, right, is countered by marksmen. If you look at marksmen, they have a skill that do damage for infantry, right? So infantry are counted by marksmen. Who are counting the marksmen? They are the lancers, right? Lancers are countered by... marksmen are countered by lancers, and lancers are countered by infantry. So depending on the ratio you have, you kind of want to play with that in mind. But it's not always working, because depending on the power differences and stuff. But that gives you a good idea. Infantry are countering marksmen. Infantry are countering lancers. lancers are countering marksmen, marksmen are countering infantry. It's maybe easier that way, right? It's cascading and then you go back. So what you can use as a troop ratio, like I'll give some troop ratio to use for wherever, you know. For me, I use a lot of, if I do, you know, like for example, the bounty, I'll use a lot of 50, 20, 30. I find 50, 20, 30 used to start to work more again, start to work better for me again. For a long time, the one that was working the best for me was 60, 10, 30, right? Some people say that you can use, you know, 50, 15, 35. So you see, it's basically a lot of tanking, a lot of damage with the marksman and lancers in the middle. One that worked really well for me in Labyrinth, for me, is actually amazing, is 45, 10, 45. I really find that working amazing in Labyrinth. So often what I'm doing, you know, is I used to swap between ratios, but I'm doing 45, 10, 45. And you need to see based on your gear and your stats, right? It's always based on your gear, your stats, you know, your troop level, your heroes and stuff. It's not that simple. I cannot just tell you a ratio that will work the best all the time forever. You will have to test for yourself. It depends a bit on the ratio as well of the opponents. So, but these are the generic one you should use most of the time. 60, 10, 30, 50, 20, 30. 45, 10, 45, or, you know, 50, 15, 35. That these are the overall offensive, defensive, you know, that you can use nearly everywhere without too much thinking. You know, if you don't really know what you're doing, that will be good enough. And if you do a bit of testing, you will see. For defense, what you will see a lot, and I'll try to see if I can get some for you. We saw a rally with Denise. And you will likely see it here. It's not a good example because we still have a bit of marksman, but you see it's defense, right? These are defense, and we are using, I mean, that's kind of the same state, but it was local Sunfire, but we are using 60, 40. And that's one of the most, after Gen 4, 5, it starts to be one of the best ratio to defend. So you will basically attack with a 50, 20, 30 often, and defend with a 60, 40. You could do like a 50, 40, 10. That will be okay as well. Maybe later, I'm not sure after Gen 10 if these ratios are changing. We are Gen 7 right now, but I think for Gen 4 or 5 we have been using that, and that's working very well. The counter rally to that, you can use all the one I gave you before. So the 50, 20, 30, 50, 15, 35, or, you know, 45, 10, 45. But you could try as well a lot more offensive ratio, which will be like 20, 30, 50, or 30, 20, and 50. So a lot more marksmen, because remember, the marksmen are countering infantry and they do a lot of damage. Let's talk a bit about ratio a bit more as well. People, basically, when they are holding, let's assume it's 60-40. Like you will see that a lot, 60-40 here. Why do they do that? It's because they want to defend, and they want to defend multiple rallies. So they'll be defending one rally, and they will have more, you know, they will want to wait for kind of the next troops to come in to reinforce, right? And then very likely what happens as well is they have, you know, defensive bonus, right, on troop health, increase defender troop health. So these are defender troop attacks. So you have defender heroes with a widget will share, you know, the stats on defense. Let me see if I can find one. So that's, see, it's more offensive. René boosts morale with their extraordinary talent, increasing rally lethality, right? So some of them are boosting in defense, some of them will be boosting on offense as well. So it kind of depends a bit on the widgets, and you have, that's kind of more for advanced player, but you know, you like widgets are important to consider into your rally, but it's not about how to make your rally, it's to read the reports, and I'll show you why you see the reports. So that's for the troop ratio, right? So 50, 20, 30 works very well. 60, 40 for defense. That's the baseline that you will use after, you know, Gen 4, 5, and that will work very well. And I have shared some of the other counters. I don't think that you see of course the troop average, right? So you see the fire crystal average and the troop average. So troops have better stats the higher level they are. So that here it's giving you an average. Basically, the stats of the troop are multiplied by the percentage below. So the higher are the troop average, the better percentage, right? So that's why it's really important for your rally joiners to focus on fire crystal in events like Frosty Fortune and other places to get the highest troop level possible at all times, so you get the best. And if you defend Sunfire Castle or attack Sunfire Castle, you might want to limit the main rally to the highest player you have, right? It's a very common practice. It sucks for a weaker player or like non-spenders, but if you care to win, that's just that's just how the game works, and you have to have the highest troop level possible, and you can always compare that, but it does not tell you really much about it, right? You just, get an image and you cannot, it's good information to have, but the report itself, it's not giving you that much information about it. So here you can see the result of the stat between player, right? So the final numbers, and I put final with the quote, and we'll talk about it in a moment, and I talk about that, so I'll link the video in the description, the one from yesterday, how to understand how they calculate these stats. Some percentage are additive, some percentage are multiplicative. You can see that's my stats of my rally versus one of the strongest player in the game, plus they had like buffs that are multiplicative on health and defense, so they have amazing defense and health, so I have no choice. That's 100k 200k euro account, I'm nowhere near that, so I'm getting crushed. So that's the outcome, and here you can see the bonus sources that are multiplicative. So you can compare basically the buffs, city buffs, so 10 or 20% buffs, then you will see the pets, right? Then you will see, that's pets, so you see you have max pets, of course. Then you will see, like in Frost Dragon Tyrant, you will see if they have buff active, Spire like turrets active, but that's only in Frost Dragon Tyrant, right? It's not available anywhere else. So usually you don't see this, but here you can see pets and you can see buff, and as well you can see Defensor, you see? These are widgets. So Defender attack, Defender defense, Defender health. So these are widgets, and if you look at the report, if you look at here, you got the Defender attack on our friend Bradley. Then you get the Defender health on our friend, what's her name, Edith. And on Nora, you will see the Defender troop defense by 15%. So that's where you see the widget in defense, right? And if you look for me, if you look at my widget, here I don't have, it's not defense, and I don't have it anyway. Here I have Defender lethality, so that should not be visible, and here I have troop lethality, so we should see somewhere for me rally troop lethality 5%. That's it. There are no other widget for me, basically. So that's kind of the sources of multiplicative sources. So that's important, and that's referring to yesterday's videos. But basically, multiplicating, what it means, if you have a widget or a buff, you have a buff that do 20%, 20% lethality, you have 1000 lethality, then you will have 1200 lethality. When the buff is multiplicative, when the buff is additive, you will have 1020 lethality. So you see it's a 180 lethality difference between the buff that is additive, just plus 20, so 1000 plus 20 is 1020%, or it's an extra 20% to 1000, so it's 1200%. And these are all the sources of multiplicative buff, and that's really important to understand, and that's kind of how whales are making a big difference with smaller players. They're often buff 20%, plus they have max pets, plus they have max widgets, and that's really, on top of having bigger stats everywhere else, they got bigger multiplier as well. The power up button is just telling you where are you in your state, if you play a bit seriously, you are 99% or 95% of everyone in your states. It's, does not really matter. But that, I don't spend on chief gear, I don't spend on charms, I don't spend that much on tech, I don't spend on pets, and I spend on hero power and on fire crystal. So you can clearly see that even if it's all 99%, that's where am I spending? I'm more competitive in my state where I put my money basically. And this time I'll do a lot of chief gear, a lot of a bit of charms. I'll do a lot of tech. I have a lot of speed up, so that will kind of catch up. But I would not upgrade based on that. That's just random information that the game gave you to compare yourself. But I would not make decision to upgrade my stuff based on that. You can watch yesterday's video about the stats and how they work and what you should focus on. So the only other thing we have, you can start a report if you are in the rally. If someone share it with you, you cannot. So you have to be in the rally to be able to start it. So that's kind of the first overview, right? So you have the troop ratio, you have the different stats. In yesterday's video, I basically explained what are the stats priorities. So health for infantry is this one is one of the most important because defense is important, right? Don't get me wrong. But the most important stats tend to be health and then lethality for marksmen and lancers. But I go more detail into the stats yesterday. I've been playing the game for a year and a half, and it's hard to kind of give you tips around stats. It changes a lot. If you're a Gen 1 and 2, let's say a whale, that's percentage of a whale in Gen 1 and 2, right? It's around 1,000, and then maybe lethality is a bit below, is 800. To give you an idea, for newer player, if percentages are in average 300% above with one march, so it's on roughly 160 troops. If you attack a rally or a city with 1 million troops, and you are in Gen 1 or 2, with 160 troops versus a million, but you have 300% more, then you will be winning with your solo march. So you will see whales with 150, 160 troops, maybe 180 if they are buffed. If their percentage are roughly, especially health and lethality, but as well attack and defense, if they have roughly 300%, they will basically kick your butt and make you burn or win the battle in the rally in the turret. That's, because now we have 3 million troops, percentages are a lot higher. It's not that simple to understand anymore when a single march will win versus a rally or versus a garrison city or something like that. So I cannot really give you these numbers anymore. It changes a lot generation by generation based on power, but you can have for newer player, you have an idea. And then the other button that people usually don't know that. They don't understand the difference of stats, and you can see here, if there are any buff, anything, maybe, it was Frostfire Mine, and I'm pretty sure the buff from Frostfire Mine is showing here as well. I just never used it myself, so I never checked, but it's a multiplicative buff, so it might be showing. So if you have a doubt and you don't understand why someone has so much health, lethality and stuff, you can of course check their gear, check their charms and stuff, plus click here to understand the buff. The only one thing that is not displayed in the report, not even in the next tab, is joiner heroes, right? So if you see the top 4 joiner hero will share the first exploration skill with us. So usually what happens, and you probably already have experience with that, but you join either with Jesse or you join with Patrick. And why you join with Jesse is because first expedition skill is increasing damage up. So it's increasing damage, and that does not show in the report. So it does not show in the report that you rally did 1 million damage, for example. And that was because JC allow you to do 25% more. So it is shared, the first 4 rally joiner with the highest kills will be sharing that with either garrison or defense. So that's why you want offense for attack, and defense you want health, right? So this one is basically increasing troop health 25%, so you can have up to 100%, which will be doubling the amount of health that your troop have. But in the report, if you have 4 Patrick, you're not gonna see it basically. You're not gonna see, it's not gonna double the health line, right? It's gonna happen somewhere else in the game, the way the game works, but it's not gonna show you which buff were selected and how it works. So how it works for joiners is the first 4 rally joiner with the highest skill. Basically, it's as simple as that. So if you have someone that join with the skill level 2, I believe if someone is joining number 5. Let's say you have 5 Patrick joining, right? The first one is a skill level 2 and everyone else is level 5. I believe that number 2, 3, 4 will be sharing their skill and number 5 as well, and you're gonna overwrite the level 2 skill, right? So that should give you the max benefit. But if you want to be sure, the first rally joiners, why do you need to know that? And even if it does not show in the report, let's say you want 2 Sergey, 2 Patrick, or you want 1 JC, 1 Sergey, 1 Patrick, and 1 Nora, for whatever reason. You are trying something weird, you want to test a new strategy, then you just need to make sure that the first 4 joiners that are arrived in your rally or your garrison are these 4 players with these 4 heroes that you've selected, right? So that's simple as that. And then the people that join later, it's not really important. Often we ask everyone to join with the same hero, with max skill, so it's simple. We are sure that the right skill is shared to the rally, and that's a lot more simple to manage. But I know that some alliance, sometimes they do 2 buff for one hero and 2 buff for another, and that's more like precise. So the first thing you can see on the battle detail are the heroes themselves, right? So heroes have skills, and the top 3 are the hero skill, and the last line is your troops. I really need to get some of these. I really need to get some of these. So let me take a sec, guys. Quick break. We try to, to be competitive with Alliance Showdown, make points. I need to be Air 4, I need to do my job. So let me refresh this very quickly. While I see that they are not. So hopefully in half an hour, someone can get a training mission. And then I'll show you the troops very quickly. If I click, I'm gonna collect my troops. Let's go on the farm. I don't want to collect my troops. I'm not sure if I can show you without collecting my troops. So let's go on my farm quickly. So troops have skills as well, right? It starts, I think, at level 8 or 9 or something like that. And you see they are here, right? So you can see that the first one is increasing damage to Lancers. So it's a flat buff, so you don't see it in the report. This one is increased defense against Lancers by 10%. You see, again, it's in the report. But then you start to have buff that you can see in the report when you have Fire Crystal Age. The Fire Crystal energy attached to the surface make the shield impregnable and grants 37.5% chance of offsetting 36 damage. So, okay. So that's the buff. So it has a chance to offset some damage. So it, let's say it takes 100 damage, it removes 36 damage. So, it takes 64 basically. And that you will see in the report. You will see in the report, and you can compare, because these are percentage based. Sometimes if you are a similar rally and you have similar power, or even a weaker player can win because he could have been very lucky on this. So you see the amount of the time the skill triggered. And and that could give you an idea. Here it's not a good example because it's a no match, right? This guy is so much stronger than me. But if it's assuming it's a similar power and similar rally, and you are like, there is someone that's winning a lot, you could see if you compare, let's say, because some heroes don't have the same skills, right? Some heroes have skills that do damage and that actually kills units, or injured unit and put them in the infirmary, or you have skills that are actually buffing damage and you don't see the outcome. So it's hard to compare a René and a Nora, for example. But when you have a Edis and a Hedis, it's both Fire Crystal 8 troops. They are both the same widgets and everything, similar stat, and you will see, was I lucky with my Edis? Because this, okay, so it's gonna proc only once. Because it's just these are buffs when she's alive, basically. So this is gonna proc only once. These are 37.5% chance to proc. But here, if you look at Lancers can place a dream mark on their target every 2 turns, dealing. So it can proc it can proc more or less depending on the length of the fight, right? It was a very short fight. I got destroyed. But if the fight was longer, you can see sometimes that this skill, they can go to 20, 30, 40 times being used on like big rallies and stuff. And you can compare, if you are using the same heroes, the effectiveness of your heroes, and if you have been lucky. For example, their Lancers, like they killed a lot of my units and they did damage, and mine did not that much. But again, here it did not happen a lot because it was a no match, and the the battle was very quick because I got destroyed basically. But you can compare, you know, heroes by heroes, and you know, it's marksmen versus marksmen and lancers versus lancers. That can give you an idea about why, you know, why it was a big win when they looked a bit weaker than you, because they might just have been lucky. And that's where, between the skill of the heroes, sometimes the widgets on arena and exploration, on rallies not, because they are giving stats, plus the skill of the troops, you can get weird outcome, and it's not always the same thing that are happening, you know, like your marksman can do a lot of damage, and you know, your infantry can absorb a lot of damage on one fight, and you might win something you were meant to lose because you have been lucky, or you can lose something you were meant to win because you have been unlucky. So that's kind of an overview of that, and you can compare. Again, if it's not the same hero, they don't have the same skills, you know, it's gonna take you a bit of reading and understanding the game, and I cannot compare like all the generation and all the heroes. It makes no sense. It's gonna take hours, and you know, if you don't care to learn it yourself, you know, nobody will be really able to teach you that. They can, yeah, you have to be curious to look at the skill, and you know, to talk to people that are using these heroes and understanding the outcomes, right? There are too many options and combinations possible to really make a guide to explain each of them, right? So it's a testing, error, and experience will help you to understand that a bit better. And if you care to do it, you know, basically, if you read the skill and you compare the outcomes, you will have a good idea. Then you have the attacker and you have the defender. So one thing that could be helpful here is, for example, you start to see that you are defending someone's city, or you are attacking Sunfire Castle, and you start to see that there is a lot of losses. Someone start to lose troops. You can quickly go here. You go there and you look. You know, these are. You know, you cannot see it, you will have to look, but you know, if you expand, you can see the losses right away. I don't think these are these losses. Yeah, losses, so you can see it here otherwise. So you can quickly go through and look, okay, who is losing troops because they have their infirmary full or something, and you can, you know, go in game and just say, hey, you know, buddy, blah blah blah, you are losing troops, you know. That could be very helpful for people in your alliance. So what can you see here? Not much, you know, we are kind of done with it, not much, but you can basically see what happens, right? Which troops are doing damage. So you can see that my infantry, that's infantry and infantry, just T11 and T10, so they did 59 kills, when my lancer they did 200, when my marksmen they did 461, right? So the damaging unit is mostly marksmen. The second one is lancers, right? So that's why you want often to boost your marksmen for lethality and attack, and your lancers for lethality and attack, and your infantry for health and defense. It's because infantry is not doing that much damage, and lancers and marksmen will do the damage basically. And you can quickly overview, you know, how much you've lost, but you're not gonna learn a lot here. Just the amount of troop injured, and you can see, and I think some people started to mention that, but I don't have replay to compare, is that recently it's seen that a bit more lancers are going to the infirmary, but you can see that the amount of troops often that go to the infirmary or die, it will be the same ratio if they die. It's more infantry, less lancer, and in between are the marksmen. So often at the beginning or later in the game like me, you will find yourself nearly training only infantry, because your lancer, they never die, or they die like least, and you will train naturally enough, so you likely not need to train any lancers at some points. And I will not use speed up lancers after maybe Gen 2 or something, to stop having too much, because you're just gonna have too much lancers. I'll train a bit. I'll use a bit of speed up on marksman up to I go to, you know, to 700k or 800k to be able to do bear with 7 marches with a lot of marksmen for damage. But after that, I'll train infantry, and mostly nearly infantry. 90% of my speed ups are going into infantry, just because, you know, when you fight, you know, in SVS and stuff, and you have dead troops, even if you revive 90%, you will have a lot more infantry that dies, and you can see it here, like more infantry, a bit less marksmen, and a lot less lancers basically. But you can have an idea of, you know, who is doing what, which troops are killing. You can see the heroes people used to join the rally, but you could have seen live, and you know, that's giving you an idea of what skills are being shared, right? the troops, and you can see, you don't really see troop ratio as well, so it's not really good. And same with the defender, right? So again, you can clearly see that the kills are made mostly by the lancers in that case, right? Infantry is not doing much, but lancers are basically crushing us. And you can see they are doing which hero they have, but that's usually what you do. But in that case, if someone is sharing the stat, they will have to have their main hero. That's why, for example, Game Master is with his best heroes. But he uses Nora, he is not using René, for example. So we are Gen 7, Nora is Gen 5. And because if you look at Nora, for example, she does it's not this one. So Nora motivates her troop, increasing all troop damage by 25% and reducing damage taken by 25% every 5 of attack made by Lancers for 2 turns. So Lancers are doing like a lot of damage reduction, basically, and that you don't really see it in the... Right? If a hero skill is proccing a lot, it's not gonna show here. It's not gonna show here. It's gonna be visible again. You will see that Nora, well, it was such a quick combat that it did not proc, but if it was a bigger combat with a lot of round, you will see that might have procced a lot, and if it was important. So you will see it here, but you don't know when it happens. Because the way combat work in the game, it's like turn by turn. So you have one turn, and we don't exactly know precisely how it works, but it's probably like one turn everyone is attacking, right? Or infantry is attacking infantry, then lancers. There is something like that, and then whatever is left, then turn 2. And skills have chances to proc, basically. So if you have 50% chance to proc, first turn, did you proc? No, maybe the side team did, so they have a 50% buff next wave, and you did not, so they crush you, round 2 of the battle and stuff like that. So it's a bit hard to, like, we basically miss kind of a combat log, right? In some games, you have a combat log, and it shows you what happened turn by turn and the damage and stuff. We don't know the damage. We don't know if it's doing 1 million, 10 million, 20 million, and we just know the amount of injured troops, right? So we could kind of calculate in some ways, if you added up, basically, if you calculated the health and the defense of troops based on what they have baseline plus these percentages, and if you counted the amount of troops that are injured, you could have an idea of how much damage I did, right? But the game is not providing you that, so the way you analyze report is a bit limited. Maybe there is one report I want to show. I'm not sure I kept it. I might have sent it to someone. Let me find it. No, that was someone explaining Tyrant. If you watch me, thank you very much, mate. Yeah, so I think it was Marksman. So we are talking with Zen about reports. So we have a report, and sometimes it's not always clear, right? But if you look at the outcome of that report, we got 1/3 injured. We lost the report badly. We were the attacker. They kept most of their troops, so 2/3 of their troops are alive and still fighting. If you compare from here, you don't really understand. It's very similar, right? It's very, very similar. PT is a bit stronger, but Farkad is doing very decent. He has some level 12 charm, and they give a lot of stat and stuff. Then if you go here and you compare, you're like, okay, PT seems to be a bit better, right? He has a bit of better levels, but it depends a bit. It's actually, these are 20, these are 18, 17, so that's a lot of health missing. Here is 16, 15, so yeah, it's similar-ish, right? If you look at troop ratio, they use 60-40, but they're actually at 50-50 because they have a bad troop ratio, so it's not counting very much in their favor. For us, we are 40-20-40, so that's a bit bad. Our troop ratio is not as good as it could be because we should have more infantry. Basically, we should have 10% less at least. So that could be one of the challenge for us. If you look at it, like troop ratio are very similar, right? 10.0, 20.1, Fire Crystal 7, they are Fire Crystal 7, 6 in average. So our troop average is maybe a tiny bit better because they are 6 and we are 7 as well on the marksman, right? So, but our troop ratio is a bit off. So that's something I can already see. It's similar power, probably it's a bit off. And then you look at the report. Well, that was not this one then. Because see, like we have more health. We have more lethality. And let me see if it was not another one. That was actually closer. Yeah, I think we had 3. They were all similar. So basically, like, when you look at it, it explains that PT wins, right? Of course, it explains that PT wins, but if you look at that report, they lost 400k troops over, We have same amount of troops. We basically get crushed. We get crushed. And our troop ratio was still off. So that was a big thing. But that's a bit better, right? That's a bit better. And infantry attack, you can discard it. Infantry defense, that's not that much. We have a tiny bit more health, so it's very similar in some ways. Oh no, we don't have health, right? Sorry. We have a bit more lethality. And I think for me, that's where the difference is. When you have 370% health, that's a lot. That's really a lot of difference, and that makes sense that they win. A bit of 400% Lancer attack, we have a bit of more Lancer lethality. Lancer defense and health is not that important. The difference is marksman attack as well. We have a lot more marksman lethality. That's nearly 100%, but they have, 400, nearly 400 plus marksman, attack. So while it seems, you can be thinking, oh, it's kind of even, right? We're a bit better here, that matters. We're a bit better here, that matters. But we get clearly crushed, right? We can clearly no match. And, it's probably from the health, probably from the attack as well. I think that's really important. These are, not for marksmen because they don't have marksmen, right, in the defense. But they have 300% as well. No, they have, 400% on Lancers as well. Plus, lethality is similar. So that's giving you an idea, but you're never sure. And if we look at battle details, if we compare, they got a bit more lucky here. Then you can compare, right? Gordon with Gordon. So somehow that procced a lot. They had a lot of kills from their Lancers because they are mostly Lancers, and we had a lot less Lancers. That's something to consider. They had 40% Lancers, we had 20% Lancers, and you can see they did a lot more damage. And these are kind of similar. We even got a bit more proc on that skill, right? So we strike marksmen behind infantry, but there are no marksmen in their setup, so it does not matter. When for them it matters because they do more damage, right? Then you look at Bradley, and even Bradley took very similar, and they don't have marksmen, so they don't have the procs of the troop, but we see, so it's kind of similar-ish on the skills. They got just a bit lucky with damage absorption, but I don't think that explains how bad we got our butt kicked by Dikali. So that's kind of what you look at it, and then after that, when you analyze it that way, then the rest will be your experience and understanding between different troop ratios, different heroes. You see, for example, we have a widget that's a bit lower here, so we get a bit less lethality. I did not compare pets and stuff, but I assume it was the same, and you see like that defender often have more widgets that work for them, right? So if you compare the widgets, so Gordon, that's lethality, that's attack, and that's health, right? So you should see attack and health, but you see Gordon is not working on defense. So when it's an offensive widget, it's not working. So while why probably the other team was using Nora. It's because Nora had a defensive widget, and it's give percentages here as well, right, on defense. So that's probably why they used it, and because as well in Tyrant you get, you know, turrets plus buff that give you crazy buffs on health and defense. So that makes sense for them because they had multiplicative percentages based on that. But that's kind of the idea of reports. You can compare quickly the amount of troops, the outcome, look a bit, you know, where the differences are, but you see it more clearly here. You can look at, you know, do you have difference in buff and pets and stuff, now troop ratio, and then quickly, you know, are you lucky with basically skills and procs, and that's kind of even, and that's giving you a good idea about why the fight went how it went, and everything else will be really like, you know, you will need to care a lot more to really understand everything in the report. So it's a bit of a longer video than anticipated, but I hope this kind of example were useful, guys. For many people, you don't need to go into that much detail, but if one day you care to understand what's in a report and how to look at it, that's a good base. Yeah, I'm thinking to do a follow-up one day, but I need to collect a lot of different reports to have different opinion as well on them, on, you know, why the outcome is the way it is, and to kind of, you know, use people experience and my own to really be sure, you know, because the game is really, for me, is really lacking the amount of information we have to understand, you know, what's happening basically. So we are kind of limited in you know, knowing the outcome of a battle, and we have to guess basically sometimes. So I thank you very much for watching, guys. It was a pleasure again, and I see you tomorrow for the next one. Bye bye.